The moment you sit down to execute deep work, you put on your headphones and start a curated playlist of lo-fi beats, classical music, or instrumental tracks. You operate under the widespread assumption that this isolates your attention. You believe that filling the background silence triggers a state of deep cognitive flow. In reality, you are committing a devastating neurobiological error. You are not eliminating distractions. You are actively installing one directly into your neural pathways. When you pump music into you, mathematically, you are forcing your brain to process two massive, entirely unrelated data streams simultaneously. One half of your processing power is attempting to decode the logic of your professional work, whilst the other half is actively decrypting an incoming barrage of acoustic mathematics. You are structurally handicapping your cognitive bandwidth before you have typed a single word. To understand why your focus feels incredibly fragile, we must examine the biological impossibility of multitasking. To understand why music destroys focus, we must examine a clinical phenomenon known as dual task interference. When you listen to music, your auditory cortex is forced online. It does not simply hear the sound passively. It must actively process tempo, pitch, rhythm, and spatial frequencies. The human brain is a prediction machine. Even if there are no lyrics, your brain is constantly calculating and anticipating the next beat, the next chord progression, and the next drop. This predictive processing requires high-level computational power. And to execute it, the auditory cortex must borrow resources from the prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex is the exact same hardware required for complex problem-solving, writing, and strategic thinking. You only have one of these. You cannot split it in half. Therefore, you are not actually multitasking. You are forcing your brain to micro-switch between the spreadsheet and the Spotify track thousands of times per minute. Every single time a new instrument enters the track or the tempo shifts, your attention is microscopically hijacked, pulled away from your work, and then forced to reorient itself. This relentless, invisible context switching comes with a devastating metabolic price tag. This constant context switching is metabolically devastating. The brain does not run on magic. It runs on a finite supply of oxygenated glucose. Processing background audio burns massive reserves of this cellular fuel. Every time your prefrontal cortex pivots to analyze a change in the music, it consumes a spike of glucose. In absolute silence, 100% of your metabolic energy is directed straight down the barrel of your professional output. You can sustain deep focus for hours. But with music, you are taking the finite cellular energy that should be building your career and wasting it on decrypting background noise. You are mathematically reducing your cognitive endurance by up to 40%. This is exactly why you feel mentally destroyed after just 1 hour of work. Your brain is not tired from the complexity of the task. It is starved of glucose from processing the playlist. Yet, despite this massive drain on your biological hardware, you continue to listen to music. Why? You may argue that listening to music makes working feel better. You might say it makes the time pass quicker. That is precisely the trap. Music is a highly potent trigger for dopamine release. It artificially elevates your mood and floods your system with a sense of reward. Deep work is naturally supposed to be friction-heavy. It is supposed to feel difficult. But the music masks this natural biological friction. You feel highly productive because you are being entertained, not because you are actually executing deep, complex strategy. Your brain receives the neurochemical reward of a job well done simply for listening to a good track. The biological drive to actually finish the difficult spreadsheet vanishes. You have completely confused stimulation with execution. You are using music as a neurological pacifier to soothe the anxiety of doing hard work. If you want to operate in the top 1% of cognitive performers, you must strip away the pacifier. To achieve true cognitive dominance, you must completely eliminate the auditory data stream. You must engineer an environment of absolute acoustic zero. Work in complete, uncompromising silence. Force your brain to face the friction of the task without artificial chemical support. When the auditory cortex powers down, 100% of your glucose and processing bandwidth is routed directly back to the prefrontal cortex. If your external environment is chaotic and silence is impossible, you may use noise-canceling headphones, but you must only play continuous, unvarying brown noise. Unlike music, brown noise contains no changing frequencies, no rhythm, and no lyrics. Because it never changes, your auditory cortex quickly tunes it out, classifying it as zero data. It acts as an acoustic shield. It blocks external distractions without draining a single drop of glucose from your prefrontal cortex. You have successfully secured your auditory environment. You have eliminated dual-task interference. But maintaining this pristine focus is biologically impossible if your afternoon nutrition is mathematically designed to shut down your brain. Click here to discover the brutal neurobiology of the 2 p.m. crash and learn exactly how to engineer your blood glucose levels for unbreakable cognitive endurance.